Good morning. So there is a lot of buzz at the moment when it comes down to dumb phones. This obviously is not a dumb phone. This is my smartphone. This is a Samsung Fold 5. So you could argue it is even much more of a phone than many people are talking about when they say they want to replace their phone with a dumb phone. And before I go into what I always talk about in these videos, I just want to kind of go into why there is this huge push at the moment, or this buzz with dumb phones. Yes, there are a couple of dumb phones already, but now there's this new phone that is called, if I'm not completely mistaken, the Clicker, that kind of looks like a BlackBerry with physical keys and a couple of more creature comforts than a dumb phone per se. So the idea of a dumb phone is basically to detach from doom scrolling, from the persistent notifications on your phone, and this kind of catering to the need of continuously looking at the internet, basically. And the dumb phone has the specific purpose of going back to basically the, in air quotes, old times, the 90s, the 2000s, where you had a phone that was not connected to the internet, has a small screen, and is kind of limited to the basics like calling, regular messaging. So those, and that is where I'm going to now, is, for example, because it has a small screen and is intentionally kind of limited at what it can do. Apps like WhatsApp or Google Maps or banking, for example, aren't possible on those dumb phones, which is why I feel like people were trying to use dumb phones, but noticed, it's not that easy to kind of get away from the internet. And that's basically the reason why I personally am not able to go into a dumb phone. I have a couple of things that I'm doing instead, to which I will get in just a second, but I feel like those are the main reasons why people cannot get rid of dumb phones. Entering those new phones that are kind of like this, please don't quote me, I'm not sure if it's actually called the Clicker, and I didn't inform myself too much about it, but I did like the idea of this BlackBerry style phone that still tries to be, in air quotes, dumb, but gives you a couple of options to not completely disconnect. And again, it comes down to the idea of disconnecting from the internet, or more specifically social media, and getting away from mindlessly scrolling, but also trying to get a grip, in air quotes, get a grip on your life by detaching from all of those notifications. But we do realize that some of those internet apps are necessary. For me personally, as a freelancer, I could not get away from a smartphone and get to a dumb phone. I am a freelance film editor, and for those of you who might never have freelanced before, when you are a freelancer, you basically are always in the mindset of working. You always want, and I'm not saying this is the right way, it's just the way that it has worked for me, and especially with economy not being that great, it kind of enforced this mindset even more. And the idea is you basically want to be accessible, reachable as much as possible. So that is why you probably are always in work mode, because you are available via email. You are available, obviously, by call, but also via WhatsApp, Teams. So those notifications are an essential part of your life to be accessible for your clients and to I just saw someone with their dogs, and she just watched her dog poo on the street, and she's just continue walking. I dislike that so much. I'm a dog owner. My wife is a dog trainer, and it makes me so mad that people are so disrespectful, because there's so many people in Hamburg or overall that do not like dogs because they have the perception that they poo everywhere and then they step into it, and those kind of owners are basically reinforcing the idea of hating dogs, because she didn't pick up after a dog, and man, that annoys me. Anyways, so as a freelancer, I want and need to be accessible and reachable as much as possible. That is why I cannot go to a dumb phone. But I did a couple of steps to kind of stop some of those things that kind of take away from my time, which, for example, I deinstalled Instagram for now already a month or 1.5 months, and I can definitely say it did benefit my life not to doom scroll. And there is the argument, it's not that easy to deinstall because the temptation of reinstalling the app is so high because it is so easy to reinstall the app, to which I will get also in a second. I also deinstalled the YouTube Studio app, and I'm not limiting my time on YouTube by doing substitution or substituted I replaced or gave myself something else to not go onto YouTube. And those things you maybe remember from all of my other videos. I am replacing apps and activities that I'm doing on this phone with single purpose items. For example, retro gaming, the Anbonic RG35XX Plus, which is a mouthful, retro gaming device to play games like Chrono Trigger or Final Fantasy VI, Tetris, Super Mario and stuff like that. Or a Kindle, an ebook reader to replace scrolling, or Audible, listening to audiobooks instead of listening to YouTube videos. So those things I can implement it in my day-to-day life to get myself not only away from social media, but also kind of use as a mental health tool. Maybe check out one of my older videos, which I will link also in the end. Using, for example, my Anbonic gaming device for 10 to 20 minutes in between breaks really helps me to reset my mindset and get back to work with a fresh perspective. And obviously there is the argument of, you kind of fill up your pockets and therefore your life with even more items to get rid of those addiction, in air quotes, of social media, of doom scrolling. Is that actually good? Or you're replacing one screen with the other screen? And with that, and I don't know if this is something scientific, I just can tell you that is something that I noticed, instead of, and this is really important, instead of passively scrolling, and that is maybe the reason why it's called doom scrolling, instead of passively just consuming media, scrolling on my phone, so scrolling on Instagram, and passively and therefore mindlessly consuming content that isn't even beneficial to me, I replace it with actively gaming. And yes, you could argue that is, but you're just gaming like Super Mario. That is so dumb. It's not dumb if you do it with purpose. Yes, you don't learn anything, but you do something actively. You're using your fingers. I would argue you're using some, if you play Tetris, for example, puzzle strategy, reflexes, but that's not the argument. The argument for me of gaming is that you can do or consume something actively. You have an active, active activity, active activity that switches off your brain actively from whatever you're doing. And that is why I'm saying it resets your mindset of whatever you're doing, either of work, any problems, any chores. And because you reset your mindset, when you go back to that, you can look at that from a fresh perspective, and it will be much easier to tackle whatever you need to do. So that is my main purpose and my main goal of doing retro gaming. The same holds true with reading. If you read, you do something more actively than being on social media. Because let's be real, yes, sometimes maybe your algorithm is really good and you have only, I don't know, scientific reels or whatever. But it's still something that you don't really intentionally watch that. That is the thing about social media. You just mindlessly scroll and just consume whatever happens to be served in front of you. And I think that is still a very passive activity where your brain kind of gets into autopilot mode. And again, this is just from my personal experience. Maybe this is not scientific, maybe this isn't true or whatever. I just kind of tell you what I experience. And that is why I exchange that screen on my phone with those things where I am a little bit more active in a way. And I think that is the most important reason why I personally added those devices. And I would argue probably I can encourage you to purchase something, but I feel like those purchases are much more beneficial, and if you utilize them correctly, and I mean that correctly in terms of it's not about ignoring your problem. All of these devices that I kind of advocate for including in your life are there to help you as a tool to reset your mindset. I don't think it's good to ignore your problems. It's all about kind of getting a fresh perspective for me. And considering those, and hopefully one-time purchases, you purchase them and use them as utility. Yes, obviously you carry more items, and I always get this question where someone says, okay, you just exchange one screen for another. But again, if you use it with a specific intent, with a specific purpose, it is actually very beneficial. So yeah, for me, a dumb phone isn't working. But if you kind of, kind of replace those apps with these other devices that I mentioned, the gaming device, an ebook reader, Audible, for example, audiobooks, then it is much easier to kind of stay away from those apps and actually make your existing phone a dumb phone. I totally want to acknowledge that just deleting apps is a good step, but there is a huge, in air quotes, risk to get back to those apps by installing them, because it's so easy to reinstall those apps. So giving yourself an out by buying those devices and carrying those extra devices is actually really helpful to get those things, those apps out of your life. All right, so that was my vlog about dumb phones and making yourself kind of stick to getting away from those social media apps. All right, have you ever tried the dumb phone? Let me know in the comment section below, because I would know if you were actually able to kind of incorporate that into your life. And maybe check out that video where I kind of talked about getting one of those dedicated devices, one-purpose devices, to get away from this multi-purpose device. Check it out up here. YouTube thinks that you like the video down here, and help me to get to 2,000 subscribers by subscribing and clicking the button up here, and that way we see each other tomorrow. Thank you very much.